This is Holly, student number T00668821, and this is Canine Holly, and we are going to be doing assignment 2, the video on the skeletal system. So we'll start with the bones of Holly's skull. So we start up front here. Fidgies. I know, fidgies. This bone up here, where the top incisors attach, is the incisive bone. While we're up at this end, maybe discuss the nasal turbinates. So those are tiny bones, actually, that look like scrolls of parchment paper. They're in her nose here, if we could shine a light in and see them. They are covered in mucous membranes, and they are ciliated as well. Their job is to warm inhaled air, as well as trapping debris and foreign pathogens. So we'll talk about her nasal bones up around here, give it structure. Obviously this is not bone, it's, well, cartilage. And this is Miss Holly's maxilla, on both sides there, so that's where the top canines and incisors would attach. These are frontal bones here. Frontal sinuses are located deep to this bone. You move back, we have Miss Holly's parietal bones, and the farthest back, most caudal, is her occipital bone, which contains the foramen magnum, so it allows for passageway of the spinal cord, and it also has 2 occipital condyles on either side that articulate with this first cervical vertebrae, the atlas. And then we have Holly's mandible. This is the bottom jaw here. I know, you're doing good. So that houses the bottom incisors, canines, and molars. It comes up here. This part here is called the ramus. And then we come up, and this temporal bone up here on either side articulates with the mandible, and that is called the temporomandibular joint. So that allows Holly's mouth to open and close. The temporal bone also contains the external acoustic meatus. So that's a foramen which essentially is her ear hole. So it's up in here. So we'll move back to her vertebrae. So we were talking about the first cervical vertebrae. So that is the atlas. It has wings on either side that you can quite easily feel. We go down to our second cervical vertebrae, known as the axis. So that allows the atlas to kind of rotate on it like that. She has 5 more cervical vertebrae. We go down here, so that's 7 in total. And then we move into the thoracic vertebrae. So Miss Holly has 13 of them. And each one of them corresponds with a rib. So that means that she's got 13 ribs in total as well. You move down from the thoracic vertebrae to the ribs. You get to a certain point called the costochondral junction. In young animals, you move into cartilage, and as an animal ages, they ossify, and they attach to her sternum, which has a few parts. So for feeling, down in here, in her last rib, be her xiphoid process, down here, and then at the front, we would have Miss Holly's manubrium. So we'll move back to her thoracic vertebrae, which have dorsal processes all the way along here. So that's kind of that bony part. If she was in dorsal recumbency, they would kind of be grinding along, so that's why we like to use troughs and things like that. And then there are transverse spinous processes coming off of the vertebrae as well. Stay. So they would be more kind of angle like this. We feel there's one on either side. We move our way down again into lumbar vertebrae. So they're a little bit bulkier, a little bit more weight bearing, and there are 7 of them as well. Stay. And we move down towards the caudal end here. So after the lumbar vertebrae, we would have the sacral vertebrae. There are 3 of them, and they are fused. And after the sacral vertebrae, we have the coccygeal vertebrae, or the tail. So dogs and cats generally have anywhere between 5 to 23 of them. Now sit. Sit. So we'll talk about Holly's thoracic limb. So she's got a scapula that's up here. And if we feel good enough, we can find the spine of the scapula. So that will tell you how that bone runs. So it's kind of a, like that. Go down like that. And then we would find the greater tubercle. So that is top part of the humerus here. And you run down all the way here to this little part here. You stand up. Right here. We would call that the olecranon process. We follow that down. We hurt ulna all the way down here. And the front bone, the smaller of those 2 leg bones, is the radius. So we would go all the way to her carpus. And then because Holly has dew claws, she has 5 metacarpal bones running from medial to lateral. We'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we move down to her digits. And she's got dew claws again, so she will have 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they all have 3 segments to them. So you would have the proximal end, the middle end, and the distal end, just here, right above the nail. One last. So we're going to talk about Miss Holly's pelvis and the pelvic limb. So we are back here. Find this top part here. We're filling the wings on either side here of the ilium. And if we move down, it's here. She's got on both sides. The ischial tuberosity. So those are her little butt bones. So that's part of her lower part of the pelvis called the ischium. And the pubis is kind of a mid-range part of the bone. The pelvis also contains Obturator, foramen. So those are the 2 big holes on either side of her pelvis there. It helps make the bone lighter. And it also contains the acetabulum. Stay. Hey, stay. Good girl. Got that. Right down here. So the acetabulum articulates with the head of the femur. And then the other side of that top of the femur is the greater trochanter. And we'll come down this way. And this is Miss Holly's patella Just her kneecap in there. And then we would feel the crest of the tibia. Would be her next bone. So the tibial tuberosity runs down from there. So one of our other little leg bones, tibia here. And then her fibula runs on the back side. Right there as well. Into her, this is her calcaneus down here. Or her hock. Like this is the hock and the tarsus. And then we move down. Holly doesn't have dew claws on her pelvic limb. So she's got 4 metacarpal bones running from medial to lateral. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll go down to her digits again. And she's got 4 of those running from medial to lateral. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And they have 3 segments each. So we're talking about the proximal end, the middle end, and the distal end closer towards the nail bed there. Good girl. I know. One more thing, okay? So we're going to talk about Miss Holly's lymph nodes. I'd like to start back here with her popliteal. Maybe in this area. Okay, either side here. And then her inguinal. I know. And in here. Back. And actually want to do more than that. Okay, good girl. And we'll move forward here. Axillary lymph nodes. Now let me move forward even more. We have pre-scapular. And submandibular. Okay. And parotid. Be up here. Stick head up. Good girl. Good girl. That was a assignment to the skeletal system with Holly and Holly. Thank you so much.